You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
There it is, the crack of the bat, and the game is on. Detroit, City of Champions. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
Oh, along with us today.
I'm just going to hang out like I did last week and screw shit up.
That's what we're going to do.
I'll introduce him, Matt Fox.
Matthew Fox. Detroit City of Champion. We are talking about the 1935 year, the amazing, amazing seasons and championships. 33 different people. Just astounding. Simply amazing. And Charles, you wrote a trilogy of books. A screenplay, which is on the cusp. You know, HBO Max and Netflix are fighting over this. It's astounding. The attorneys. It's like a cat fight with the attorneys right now.
One of these days, we'll see.
So, but we talked about the Tigers. We talked about the Lions, and we've been talking about the Red Wings because it's such a colorful season.
It's an incredible season.
The dog fight that is up and down, back and forth.
Yeah.
Chicago Blackhawks, our buddy Eddie Belfour, bringing us his bourbon and bad vibes from Chi-Town, and it dates all the way back to the 1935-1936 season and before.
The rivalry with the Blackhawks and Red Wings was a major component of the season, and I've always thought like one of the great things about these like championship seasons. Is when you have when there's like storylines within the season.
Yeah.
Like when there's rivalries, when there's player versus player stories. There's like a player trying to make a comeback, a guy who's like a rookie who's came out of nowhere and he's like the spark plug for the team. All these like stories within the stories. That's what like really I think makes a championship season.
Hey there, Sparky.
Yeah, well, that's what engages the fans. It's what engages the fans into the interest of that story, into the game. It's not just the fact of whether they win or lose.
Right.
It's the fan engagement with these teams, and I mean, and that's why we're taking our time going through this Red Wings story because there's so many components that show why hockey became such an endearing subject in Detroit, and it all started in 1935.
Because we're trying to figure this out, and talking about the fans. I want to take a second and talk to the fans of the podcast for a second. No, I'm just funning. But anybody who's taking the time to listen, we do appreciate taking the time to listen. If you haven't subscribed or liked or followed. Please do that. Like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment. Comments are gold for
we love it.
For
it really
podcasters.
Helps the algorithm. It helps people find us. It helps bring this thing up.
So we're going on YouTube. We're going on Facebook, and then the audio podcast. So wherever you're listening, watching, viewing, follow along, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, give the podcast a follow. Give it a like. Make a comment. If there's a question that you have for Charles. Charles knows all pretty much, right?
We've encountered a few pretty interesting people making comments on our videos and things, the relative of people, and it's been great. So, but thank you. Everybody's following along, please, and follow or subscribe wherever you're at, and thank you for that. And you were saying because we're taking our time with the Red Wings here, and I think because we're just figuring this out, right? I barely know what I'm doing. You have no idea what you're doing when it comes to the podcast. To the sports thing, you are like the encyclopedia.
But as you and Matt are to the gear that even puts this podcast out.
We're working on it.
You guys are great,
and how it all works and the flow of it. And I think we kind of rushed through the Tigers and the Lions a little bit.
In retrospect, and especially the Tigers.
The way we're taking our time with the Wings. Yeah. But I mean, the problem is, and it's your mindset. I'm blaming you, Charles.
That's fine.
Because you're used to you're selling your books.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is how you live. You sell your books.
Yeah.
And you're at art fairs and you're at trade shows and you're on the spot and somebody walks by and you got 45 seconds to tell them a story before they walk away.
Yes, agreed.
And so we're taking an hour to talk about one little fraction of it.
To talk about like 5 games. Yeah.
And we've been like. So I think we blasted through the Lions.
We did. Well,
and Tigers
especially the Tigers. The Lions, we saved that a bit. But the Tigers, I mean, well, we can always
we
go back.
And that's
we
the
can go back.
We
That's what
will.
I'm saying. We got
so,
an entire show dedicated to this one season.
There's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many stories to tell.
Yeah, and we already talked
we'll
about the
them.
idea that we were going to go back and talk about the individual players, like do entire shows on the the players and stuff. So
because the Tigers had so many cool,
Yeah, and we especially the time we're taking on the Red Wings. Yeah, because.
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at all the food on the table because we're at the Detroit Shipping Company downtown.
Oh, my God.
And all the food on the table across the way. Wow.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
Yeah, that's a great little spot.
There's like 3 people and they have like 6 dinners.
Yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah.
But
we did blast through. But we are taking time with the Red Wings, and we can always go back to Tigers.
And so now, because they started out hitless wonders, right? A couple episodes ago, for the beginning of the season, couldn't get it going on, but then the spark lit. Everything turned. It was the day that the Lions. From what I remember, they told me it was the day that the Lions
won their NFL championship. Was the day that the Red Wings moved into first place,
and everybody kind of went.
Yeah, hold on a second here. Especially Joe Louis on the same day on the same newspaper. It's announced that Joe Louis wins the Associated Press Most Outstanding Athlete of 1935.
Right.
On that day, the Lions. It's on the same paper, on the same page, and that's why I put it on the cover of the book because that day is so incredible. Because you had the Lions, it says Lions win title on speed and better judgment,
right?
And then Joe Louis wins the Associated Press Outstanding Athlete of the Year, and then Red Wings move into first place. All you had to know, that wasn't listed was that the Tigers had won the World Series.
Yeah. That's the only thing off the paper.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
And I would wager somewhere in this edition. The Tigers get mentioned.
Oh, I'm sure the Tigers were just on everything.
Yeah.
The guy, they went to an outhouse somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, this guy did this." I mean, they meant everything about the Tigers was an obsessive, story.
Right.
But that's what I mean is like anybody that saw this newspaper on that day, there is no way that you could miss the growing dominance of Detroit in sports in this one singular year.
Yeah.
And so, especially in the case with the Red Wings, and I said this. I say this, when talking about like. What lessons are to be taken out of this story? I've actually said that the entire history of Detroit sports needs to be reevaluated, in factoring this story into what we understand to be the story of Detroit sports. And one of the major and most important components is how important this season was for the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh.
Because before this season, the Red Wings, this was the third name for this Detroit franchise. The hockey
was it? Cougars, Falcons,
Falcons, and then the Wings.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
I'm learning.
So you're nailing it, man.
Well done, Mr. Sports.
Like the
sports ball.
There's rumors that Jack Adams is trading potatoes for tickets to get people in the thing.
Well,
there's more fans coming to the Olympia Stadium to watch the Canadian teams beat the Red Wings. This is what I'm saying. Like this hockey in Detroit
the start
was
of the
not
season
popular.
when they were the hitless wonders there, like
Nobody
2-3
was
episodes.
coming.
There was like 2,000-3,000 people in the stands. It's a
There was more people going to watch the Olympics
13,000
games.
people capacity, and there are more people for the minor league.
Yeah.
But now we hit that turning point with the Lions. They move into first place, and then comes this dogfight that we talked about last time with the Blackhawks, which brings us
so
where
the rivalry
today.
is starting to grow on people. They're starting to understand this game and that the Red Wings are in first place, but it's not an easy match. If they want to get through, if they want to bring this final championship home to Detroit, they got to go through the buzzsaw of the NHL season.
Teams? I don't know if you know
8
this.
8 teams, yeah, 8 teams.
They were 8 teams in the NHL at this time. Okay, because Matt, you had talked about, and you're like, oh, the original 6.
Right.
And I thought that too.
It's many people.
The
think
the original 6, right? That happened because this is 1935, right? And then we had World War II. In World War II, a couple more teams fell off,
dropped 2 teams,
and so after World War II, and that's the whole problem with it. So many people and so much of the history, they just poo-poo and ignore everything before World War II.
Wow.
So original 6. It's like
that's 1941 to 1946 through now, or through 1946 through the 50s. That's what that talks
it was
about.
what survived World War II.
Yeah.
There were only 6 teams that emerged after World War II.
Because even a couple years prior to 35, there was 10 teams.
Yeah.
And then if you even go further back into the 20s and early 1900s, there was 3 different leagues. They were all battling for the Stanley Cup. There was like 30 teams. There was a bunch.
Was it still called the Stanley Cup back then too?
Yeah, it was Lord Stanley's Cup since the earliest days. That's one of the episodes we did, an earlier episode to kick off the Wings, was when we were talking about how the Stanley Cup itself is what led to the rise of professional hockey because the cup became the most. It was like
it's coveted,
like
very
the coveted thing, and so the teams were growing and leagues were growing based on the idea of they wanted to bring the cup to this particular region or this particular city, and so it started to become a contest.
1893, the Winged Wheelers.
Yeah, so you had these. You had
the images up on the screen of the Winged Wheelers.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so reminiscent of the.
Well, that's where
Wings.
the Red Wings patch came from. Was that James Norris, the owner of the Wing, when he came to own the Detroit Red Wings in 32?
Was he on that team or he owned it?
No,
the Winged Wheelers. How was he involved?
To be honest
in
with
that?
you, I forgot if he was on it or what. But he grew up in Montreal and he was a kid, and the Montreal Winged Wheelers were like the darlings of the city.
Yeah.
So one way or another, the Winged Wheelers were gone by this point, and so he was like, hold on a second. Winged Wheels, Detroit, in Detroit with the Motor City, it's better than the Cougars. You know, I mean, that's Cougars this is a cool concept.
Yeah.
And so he took that concept from the Winged Wheelers. But yeah, the birth and the growth of professional hockey was due to the pursuit of the Stanley Cup.
So I always think that's because you always hear the original six. Yeah. The original six is like all post World War II.
Yeah, and one of the casualties,
and the Wings are part of that. And I believe, I believe an argument could be made is that the 1935-1936 Red Wings season is what carried them through the war and carried the NHL through the war to be a viable option of sports entertainment once the war was over. I truly believe the City of Champions.
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. I would help you fight that argument.
Kept it alive.
Yeah, well, because there's
I
a
just
couple
made
different
that
ways.
just now.
Well, I would defend that argument with
David.
you. I would defend that argument with you because if Detroit had not embraced hockey when they did, and the Red Wings, Detroit hockey was basically a dying and dead entity going into World War II. Yeah. In World War II, the two teams that were casualties were the New York Americans and the Montreal Maroons. And the Montreal Maroons are actually, and just as an aside, are one of my all-time favorite franchises. They're just like the coolest franchise. But if they would have lost those two teams, and then also Detroit, because nobody cares about it, then they would have only had 5 teams coming out of World War II, and then what would the NHL have been?
Right.
So
then help me understand. So after World War II is where the original 6 kind of came from.
Because there's only 6 teams left from all the original teams.
And I get that. So, but the precursor of World War II, to have these 8 teams battling out for the Stanley Cup, what are we talking about right now? Because what'd you go? One-hit wonders?
Well, they called them the hitless wonders at the beginning of the season
because they had a rough start to the season.
They couldn't score. They had their offense was awful.
But then throughout this season, they ended up coming back around, and then people started to pay attention to the Red Wings.
That's what we're saying. On the day where the Lions won their championship, the Red Wings, on the same paper, it says Red Wings move into first place. And so anybody, and there's actually a cartoon that I have where Santa's putting trophies in these stockings on this fireplace, and there's a stocking for the Tigers, it's got a trophy. There's a stocking for the Lions, it's got a trophy. There's a stocking with Joe Louis, it's got a set of boxing gloves in it, and then there's an empty stocking, and Santa's holding a trophy, saying, "I wonder if he'll have room to put it with all the others."
That picture's brilliant.
It shows exactly the mentality was that all these other teams had won their championships. The Red Wings were the final piece of the puzzle. Now the Red Wings to Detroit fans who may have never cared about hockey or given any consideration to it, then all of a sudden they're like, well, we could do something really cool here, Detroit, for the greater glory of the city, which is a clean sweep of major professional championships. What is hockey? I don't know, whatever, but let's go take a look for the heck of it.
Check it out.
And then they would go, and this team, at this exact moment, they were no longer the Hitless Wonders. They were coming out of the gate and skate in circles. They're like, one of these articles we read was where they're like the red wolves on the prowl, like in front of like the largest crowd ever seen at Olympia Stadium. The Red Wings put on a show.
And this is through the Blackhawk series?
Well, the whole season. Okay. The whole season. They're playing bigger and better games, and the fan attendance is growing, and they're performing to higher levels in front of these fans. They're playing like championship team, and they're playing, their season is up and down. They're going through this tough dogfight, especially that's what we talked about the episode with the dogfight is the Blackhawks, where they had this ancient rivalry with the Blackhawks
Yeah.
in every way that you can possibly imagine. The goalie of the Blackhawks, this rookie, Mike Karakis, was originally cut by Jack Adams, the Red Wings GM, and he was the goalie of James Norris's Chicago Shamrock team back in the day. And so the fact he got cut and then he resurfaces with the Blackhawks, the two owners detested each other. They were neighbors in Chicago. They detest each other. The coaches hate each other. The goalies hate each other. The players hate each other. The Blackhawks got this captain who's this big Russian, tank named Johnny Gottselig, who just hates, the Ebby Goodfellow and him are the two biggest brawlers and bruisers on each other's teams. They don't even care about getting penalties. They're just sticking each other whenever they bump into each other. Wow. There's glass bottles getting thrown. There's fights in the crowds. There's fights. We're about to read today about Jack Adams getting into a fight with a heckler. So this is a season that is raucous, whirling dervish, type of a rollicking
let's
story.
go. Let's get into
I know.
this,
So
man.
they lost that game on Christmas night.
Yes.
To the Blackhawks.
So advancing
and then
the story forward,
we talked I think there was another game we talked about
really got
after that.
Yeah.
And then where are we at now?
So we got into the So the last episode we talked about two big matchups that they had especially the games that lasted from games 26 through 33. The whole season was 48 total games. So games 26 to 33, they had to face the Blackhawks twice and the Boston Bruins twice.
Okay.
And in the game that we finished talking about in the end of the last episode was that Normie Smith had shut out Tiny. The Red Wings had shut out the Bruins 1-0. They'd won the game 1-0. And Normie Smith, the goalie of the Red Wings, had shut out Tiny Thompson of the Bruins. Tiny Thompson was regarded as the best goalie of his era. And his record was his goal against average was 1.69 a game. He had 12 shutouts out of 48 games that year. So a quarter of his games are shutouts. He's one of the best goalies ever, and the Red Wings shut him out. You see, and then the only goal of the game was scored by Marty Berry, who was the guy that the Red Wings got in trade from the Bruins. So it was particularly special for him to score that goal that won this massive game against the Bruins, because the Bruins are no joke. They were kind of like the Boston Celtics in basketball. They had this very strong core group of guys that were all really good, and and so they beat the Bruins to sort of finish off the leg. That's where we left off last night. So they had sort of an up and down thing, but they're still in first place. They're still grinding. They dipped briefly below first place for a moment after one of the Blackhawks games they played. But so we're going into game 34. So we're progressing through the season, and game 34 is a 3-2 loss to Toronto. Okay. So what happens in this game is something incredibly significant, okay?
Please.
That's significant, which is that Herbie Lewis, it's discovered that Herbie Lewis, just a brief mention of Herbie Lewis, we've done a whole mention about Herbie Lewis.
Who's Herbie Lewis?
Herbie Lewis, there's the information on Detroit Red Wings 1935 team is always very, very rare.
Yeah.
There's usually two things they talk about. Number one is the longest game ever played, which was we're going to get to, it's in the playoffs. It's the longest game in NHL history still to this day.
Oh, wow. 6
overtime periods. So yes. It's the equivalent of 3 full games that they played. So we're going to get to that. I don't want to give
How many
guys.
bananas can you eat?
I don't want to give any more
No
away.
shootout, mofo.
So that's one of the things that we'll get to. I don't want to give any more details away about that game. But that's one of the first things that you will always, that if you ever hear anything about the 35 Wings, that's the number one thing you will hear. The second thing you will hear is they reference the top line of the Red Wings of that year, which was Larry Orey, Marty Berry, and Herbie Lewis.
Is that the O-line?
That's the top line. No. So that's the top line of the Red Wings in this year. They both score. They're all
top scoring line. They had
the top
most
scoring
points.
line. Exactly. Yes. And Marty Berry was the guy they got from Boston who scored the winning goal in the previous game. That game 3-3 that we were talking about.
All right.
So anyways, so those are the only two things that 99%. If you ever hear anything on the 35 Wings, those are the two things that you will hear about. Okay. And so in this game number 34, this loss against Toronto, it's discovered that Herbie Lewis, and another quick aside is that when they talk about this top line, they're like, this line just rampaged the whole way through the season. It was pretty much the only the main reason why they won. As we're going to see right here, Herbie Lewis had been playing for 2 weeks with a banged up ribs, his side was hurt, and then he took a big hit in this game 34 against the Toronto Maple Leafs by a guy named Busher Jackson. And then he went down hard, and they did x-rays after the game to find out he'd been playing for 2 weeks with a fractured rib. Okay? Been playing for 2 weeks with a fractured rib.
If so they check me under the boards.
So now he's out, and they say he's out for 12 days.
Oh.
Okay, minimum. Like he's got to heal his ribs. He's playing this brutal.
It's 1935.
Game. Exactly.
Walk it off.
Yeah, well, so
spit
rub
on it,
some
rub
dirt
it out.
on it. You're good.
It'll be good.
Yeah, so 12 games. So
Ice.
he's got to
Rub
play.
some
So
ice
he's got to
on
be
it,
down
yeah.
for 12 games. That's the prognosis.
Instead of hockey.
So into his place is a guy named Wilf Starr, is promoted from the Detroit Olympics. One of the things we've spent a lot of time talking about is how the Detroit Olympics, Jack
Solid.
Adams spent all this time to build these minor league team. That they were, these are these guys that are coming up to the Red Wings. He built himself a farm team on the same ice that played the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah. Well, and there's something about that home ice. There's something they talk about. Well, Joe Landis. How long have they been in Little Caesars? Like 3 years, 4 years now.
Couple 3 years.
3 years,
I think,
Yeah. But there used to be this thing about the boards in Joe Louis, and there was like a couple of spots
They would give
behind the net
Yeah.
where you would hit and it would rebound differently.
Lindstrom had he was laser focused on that spot,
and they would know, right? And so your home team playing, and
Sure.
then even if your minors are playing in that arena, they know that rink,
Yeah.
and they
We're going
know the eccentricities.
Yeah.
But we're going back to Olympia though. These are the Olympia.
Well, no, I know, but I'm just saying the eccentricities of an arena, and then because most minor league teams today and ever never played in the same arena or same ballpark as
the
major league team.
They were the only
Right.
team.
This
So
is
far
the-
as I can see, the Detroit Olympics.
This is an anomaly.
Were the only minor league team in all of sports in this era to play in the same stadium as the major league parent.
So
club.
who did he bring up?
So he brings up a guy named Wilf Starr.
Okay.
So Wilf Starr
to replace Herbie.
To replace Herbie at left wing, yes, as part. So here we go.
Is he gonna rock it?
This is already sort of breaking up this narrative that Herbie Lewis and this top start line is the main three guys because Herbie's gone. You got a minor league replacing him. So Wilf Starr comes up, and so to replace Herbie Lewis. Now I want to get in. So before I mention Game 35,
okay.
We haven't sort of done something like this before, but this is a fascinating opportunity to do something kind of cool here.
Yeah.
And what it is Herbie Lewis. The Red Wings went on the road to go and play. They were going off to play in Boston. Okay, it's a Game 35. They're going to play in Boston. But Herbie Lewis stays behind. Herbie Lewis stays behind. Okay, to rest his rib. He doesn't. They didn't want him to travel and stuff like this
because he got hurt in Game 34.
Game 34, and so
now
we're going to Game 35, and so the night of Game 35, Herbie Lewis is instead of just sitting at home resting his rib, Herbie Lewis is at Olympia Stadium watching the minor leaguers play.
Oh, okay.
So this is a story. I wanted this. The next subject is fairly it's really important, and it's an opportunity to read from Herbie Lewis's perspective about what I'm about to tell you next, about the significant component of this story. So anyway, so Herbie Lewis is sitting at Olympia Stadium, and this is him sitting there, and a writer that's also there, sort of observing him. Okay. So the story comes out February 19th, 1936. It's Leo McDonald from the Detroit Times writing this article.
So Leo was pretty prominent.
Leo does good stuff.
Yeah, Leo's amazing.
We've been reading a lot
Absolutely.
of his stuff.
Yeah. So okay. So actually, where's it?
You're good. Yeah.
1 second. I got to go back for a second.
So here's what Matt and I do another show called the Man Cave Happy Hour.
Yes.
And we get to sit around drinking bourbon.
Yes.
And before Charles comes in.
I'm just going to keep agreeing with you.
And what's funny is like Charles gets in here and he's got to, because I don't know anything. And he's got to talk the whole time. And he usually comes in and whatever we were drinking during the Man Cave, he'll pour himself one too.
Which he did.
But then he's got to talk the whole time, and he never catches a break to have a sip. You and I are sitting here listening to him. It's like a fireside chat.
So let's commit so he could drink.
That's kind of what I was doing. So
I appreciate that.
So he could wet his whistle before he dove in.
I appreciate
but
that.
no, it's like a fireside chat where we just kind of just curl up with a nice little dram and listen to a story. That's
well, maybe our viewers are doing it too.
That's why I love this show. It's because I just curl up and listen to you tell a story.
Yeah.
So
this is a story from So anyways,
this is Herbie watching the minor league.
Herbie watching the minor leagues, okay? And so it says Herbie Lewis, one of the most popular idols Detroit has known in any sport, sat in the front row box at Olympia last evening as the furious skating Olympics and crimson-shirted Windsor Bulldogs skimmed the ice with blazing red-hot steel.
Love the writing.
Tough luck, Herbie, uttered some Husky fan as he walked past, slapping the star Detroit left winger on the back. Thanks, returned Herbie with one of those forced smiles. What do you mean, thanks? A friend asked. You're not thankful for those cracked ribs, are you? Lewis ceased squirming around in his seat and stuck out his hand to the friend. Excuse me, he said very apologetically. I'm pretty grumpy tonight. This business of sitting on the sidelines when your team is fighting for a championship gets on your nerves. The friend, being a right guy, smiled back and gave Lewis a robust wallop on his heavy brown coat. You're the tops, Herbie, said the friend. I know how you feel. Lewis literally jumped from his seat as Bretto, Windsor defenseman, spilled Mud Brunito on the ice. Look at that Bretto, yelled Herbie. He looks like a Newfoundland dog with shaggy hair. Wow, look at him go. The voice of the announcer blurted over the loudspeaker system. The voice of the announcer blurted over the loudspeaker system. The Red Wings have taken a 1-0 lead over Boston in the first period. Herbie Lewis forgot all about the cracked ribs. He wiped away the downcast mask. Ride 'em, boys, ride 'em, he yelled. They can't stop us now. The first period ended. So fans kept pouring past Lewis, offering sympathy and suggesting encouragement in the fact that he would be back soon. Yup, Herbie answered, I'll be back in 10 or 12 days. But this game in Boston tonight is the one that counts. Gotta have that one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because when you win on home ice, the other team's home ice.
Yes, big.
That's a statement.
yeah.
It's a
That's
big
total
game. Well,
statement.
they're just
Yeah.
battling for first place. So he's like, that's what it's. So that's why I'm sure if you caught it, but he heard the announcer say, "Red Wings have taken the lead 1-0." He's like, "Yes, you know,
Yeah,
go for it."
let's go,
So
boys.
okay, so the next little section is called "Bad News Descends." Back and forth skated the Olympics and Bulldogs. Herbie skated with them, fought along the boards with them, but occasionally remembered he was an injured warrior and leaned back in his seat.
Wait. Was he playing?
No,
but he's just in a seat.
It just sounds like he
I know.
was playing
He's
with
on
that
the
last
e-
statement.
on the edge of his seat.
Yeah, he's back and forth. He's like skating with them and doing all these things, but remembers he's injured. He can't do anything. He's sitting in the sideline.
It just sounds like the way you read that, it sounded like he
up.
was actually skating.
And keep in mind, real quick,
Giddy up.
keep in mind that these people are 1 after 9 slapping him on the back, and he's got cracked ribs. You know,
Good on you,
hey,
boy.
Herbie, you're a great guy. You know, they're
Yeah, it's
slapping
like
him on the
football
back.
players and their
day.
concussions. They're
Yeah.
always like cracking
Slamming
each
the
other in the
heads, yeah.
head. It's like, yeah, of course
Yeah.
you got
So here we go.
mashed potatoes for brains.
Yeah, so here we go. So
Too soon?
So bad news descends. Back and forth skated the Olympics and Bulldogs. Herbie skated with them, fought along the boards with them, but occasionally remembered he was an injured warrior and leaned back in the seat. And then suddenly, Mr. Lewis, a greatly excited usher pounded the dapper Red Wing star. Mr. Lewis, he whispered hoarsely, we've just heard that Larry Ori has broken his collarbone.
Oh, no.
Maybe he's through for the rest of the year. My God, no, answered Lewis. Don't tell me that. Herbie leaped from his seat, apologized to his friends, and struck out for the executive offices. This is one rumor I'm going to prove to be wrong, he flung back. We can't get a break like this.
Larry Ori?
A real champion. So Herbie came back bearing an expression that proved he truly was in the black depths of despair. Imagine that, he stormed. Here Larry and I played together for 8 years. Now we're both out. They tell me it is a cracked breastbone and injured ribs. Ooh. But that means 3 or 4 weeks at best.
Wow.
Herbie sat there for a moment and then turned to a friend. I'm going back into the lineup Sunday, he said. Damn if we lose this thing now. Did you say you were going back Sunday? Asked the correspondent. No. That is, stuttered Herbie. I said, well, hell yes, I'm going back in Sunday if they'll let me. So the Olympic Windsor game was nearing an end when the announcer again broke in. The Red Wings beat Boston tonight 2-1.
Oh, wow.
Herbie Lewis went into something resembling a hula dance. Imagine those guys, he yelled. Imagine those guys going on to win on a night like this. While they'll win without Larry or Herbie Lewis or anyone else. I'm going back in there Sunday. You darn tootin' I am. But about this time, Moose Jamison, the referee, skated along the boards. Hi, Jamie, said Herbie. Hey there, Duke, returned Jamie. Come on over to the dressing room after the game and we'll meet Moose Jamison, said Herbie. He's the greatest character I've known in hockey.
So real quick.
Yep, one last thing.
Yeah.
So I did go over to the dressing room, and the story of Moose Jamison and Herbie Lewis certainly gets to space another day. It's too grand a story to chop into small parts. But what I'm getting around to saying is that Detroit forever and eternally will be a city of champions as long as we've got athletes the Herbie Lewis type.
Fun. That's absolutely fun. So Jack Adams. Who did Jack Adams replace Herbie with?
Well, that's with Wilf Star.
Wolfstar. Okay, so Larry Ori,
He was the other guy on that wing, that
on
famous,
the same
top
line.
Yes.
Okay.
So that Star
just to bring that all
was their
together.
power line.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now 2 of the top guys in their top line are both mangled badly.
Right.
Herbie's out. Larry Ori has got a cracked rib, and broken chest bone. Chest bone? How do you break your chest bone?
Oh, it's called hockey.
Yeah, I understand.
That's old time hockey.
But it's from saying
Eddie
like,
Shore, old time hockey.
But could you
putting
see?
on the foil,
but
coach?
this is the next day after
That's all
they
I got.
lost Herbie Lewis.
Oh yeah.
2 days in a row, the
Yeah.
star power. And like the reason I mentioned the idea that in every book, there's two things they always talk about in the modern day books.
Right.
Is the longest game ever, and also the top line with Barry, Ori, and Lewis.
Yeah.
And then
And
here
today,
it was
we're
a big
game
deal. It was a
35.
big deal for that line. They were the top scoring line for this team. They were
And
the
we're
number
like,
one
what?
stars.
We still have a good quarter of the season to go.
Well, I did the math on it. Actually, I did a real quick look.
Okay,
and there's,
cool.
There's actually what is it at? 2 weeks left in the season. Yeah, I'm sorry, I take it back. Where the heck is it at? Hold on a second. There is.
God, your notes are crazy.
No, they're right here. It's there is. So the date of this incident
I
was.
love your notes.
It's about 18 more games or something.
Yeah, there's it's February 20th when this all happens, when this goes down. And then when Larry Ori gets injured, it's February 20th. And then the final game of the season is March 22nd. So there's 1 month, almost 1 month exactly left in the season.
Well,
All right, so looking at this, because there's a graphic.
Herbie Lewis is said to be is told he's going to be out for 12 days, and Ori's they're going to. Well, I'm going to tell you about his X-rays in a second. But so there's a ton of these guys they're battling, they're grinding for
They're
first place. They're
literally
trying to stay in
battling,
first.
yeah.
Yeah, they're not like ahead like 15 wins or whatever.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like th're grinding out and they lose their top
It's like
stars.
3-4 wins at best.
Yeah.
So it's a roller coaster, and this
Yeah.
graphic that we have up, it's a roller coaster, and this roller coaster isn't over yet.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to say. This is something that is an ongoing game by game. That's why we've been going like game by game.
Yeah.
As people have noticed, I hope people have noticed. Every time I mention a game, we're like game through. Have I had a single game yet where I'm like,
I would
won
never-
That one didn't count.
Yeah, like
or
it was
that
like-
didn't
no,
impact it too
no,
much.
where I'm saying like,
Yeah.
they just won 3-1. Let's move on to the next game. Like
Yeah.
every single game has had some kind of drama or something severely
Right.
important to the
Right.
story.
Yeah.
I would still ride that roller coaster.
I'm in, man.
Yeah. So anyway, Larry
I'm
Ori,
so in.
the X-rays come back in Larry Ori, and Lori has a broken breastbone.
Jesus.
It's initially
I'll heal over the summer.
even-
Let's play.
Though he's initially feared loss for the season, X-rays reveal that 10 days to 2 weeks is the more likely scenario.
Okay.
And
Again,
with
the season
1
is-
month
with
left in
1
the
month
season.
left in the season.
Oh, my goodness.
So now Larry Ori is replaced by a guy named Art Giroux. Art Giroux is coming from the Olympics,
Is that with a
just like
J
Will
or-
Start with
is
a
that with
G.
a- with a G?
With a G,
Okay.
like a French spelling.
Different than Al Giroux.
Girous. We have a graphic of him too. But anyways, we'll get to that graphic in 1 second. Don't put it up just completely yet. But anyway, so now you've got 2 guys from the Olympics that are replacing these 2 stars.
That Herbie just watched. Right?
Herbie. Art Giroux was on the Olympics when Herbie was watching him, but
Yeah.
now with Larry Ori injured, Art Giroux's going up to the
got
the
called
wings.
up.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that O-line the Olympia line?
Yeah, that's what we're
Okay,
getting-
fair
yeah,
play.
the
All
Olympics,
right.
yeah.
All right, fair play.
Yeah, so
I get
anyways,
it.
yeah, as Herbie revealed in this story, as the announcer revealed in that article, the Wings do indeed win Game 35 against Boston 2-1. So Game 36, here's my next one.
Suck it, Boston.
Yeah. Yeah, so they did pretty well against Boston. So Game 30.
You got to
so,
say it right. Suck it,
Suck it, Boston.
Boston.
So Game 36 is a 3-6 loss to the Maroons. But one of this, like a side note in this, is that at the Olympics game on that same night, Bill Rogel, who's the shortstop for the Tigers, he's sitting too close to the edge of the ice. He's watching the game, and there's no plexiglass between
Oh
the
my God!
fans
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. Oh no,
and
no.
He leans over too far, and he gets caught in the face with the hockey stick.
Oh.
Needs 4 stitches to get stitched up. It came right over his eye, almost blinded him. It almost took out his eye.
During the game.
During the game, he's just a fan watching the game. He was front row seat, and he got caught. He leaned over too close on the boards and got caught with
See,
a stick in the
you know
face.
what? That's his fault. That's not the player's fault.
I know, but
that's his
great.
fault.
Like that's 1935 hockey.
Yeah, hell
You know,
yeah,
there's
man.
no plastic
No,
dividers.
screw that.
These guys are sitting there watching the game.
It took
and he gets
until the
catches a
2000s
stick.
to put up nets, so
Yeah. Sure.
unfortunately,
What was
But
it?
this 35, these guys
that-
gets caught with a stick.
that incident at the Palace.
The Tigers.
That incident at the
Yeah.
Palace where all the basketball players
Oh,
were
we're gonna get
climbing
into
into the
something like that.
stands.
Oh, boy.
You know,
Oh, boy.
It's like, can you imagine 1935 where they were
gonna-
serving glad there's a riot coming. they're serving glass bottles, and it's
Did
just.
you read my notes for today's episode or something?
Well, I saw the graphic of the riot of.
There you go. So you saw it. You
coming
saw
up
what's
on-
about to come up here
on
in this
March
story.
2nd,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Hang on, folks.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
it's
a
coming.
ride.
Crap's,
Yeah, so-
Crap's gonna
so-
break loose wide on the second.
So
Screw your
so
plastic
game-
twist offs.
So they lose. So they lose game 36 to the Maroons. Game 37 is a win over the New York Americans. But in this game, this all O's line, this all Olympics line, you can show that graphic. You got it.
Yeah.
This all O's line debuts together. Adams puts them together on the line, and they respond in a massive way.
Because they were clicking
They were clicking in the minors.
Yeah.
So he puts them all together. They got Wally Kilrea was the captain of the team when he was in the minors. He's already been up with the Red Wings. He's already a core component. So Wally Kilrea is already on the Red Wings, and he's the center for Wilf Starr and Art Giroux. And so these guys go off.
It's not just a line. I mean, it's offense, defense, and goalie.
Yeah, the
whole
thing.
It's the entire ice. When
All
you
the guys
when you
in
say
here, yeah.
when you say the O line, it's like it was either defense or I mean, it's all 5 dudes,
6, including the goalie.
and the goalie.
Normie Smith came for the Olympics. The
Yeah.
whole squad.
So this is the flip flop. He was
Yeah.
thinking like,
Well, what's
maybe I should flip flop.
So what's interesting is the line is written. So we mentioned the line.
love
You have,
these guys.
You have Wally Kilrea in the as a center. You have Art Giroux on the right wing, Wilf Starr on the left, and then the two. But Bucko McDonald, who as we know came from the Olympics.
Bucko!
Yeah, and then you have Normie Smith and goalie, who was the goalie for the team, for the Olympics.
Yep.
And then you have Ebby Goodfellow, who came up through the ranks of the Olympics as well. So he was like a little bit of it. He was back in the Olympics a few years prior.
Sure.
But all the other guys were like within the last year. We're all with the Olympics, and so right at this moment is where we see once again this genius of Jack Adams play out. That he had been developing this core group of minor leaguers, emphasizing winning because they'd already won the previous year's IHL championship. So they were emphasizing winning, so that if a situation like this came, that two of his biggest stars were out. He brings up these Olympics players, and they're slotting right in, and they're not missing a beat. And what's great is this game 37. You have Wilf Starr scores a goal. Art Giroux has it's like what is he? Let me just read off the stats here.
I'm sorry, but let me ask real quick. Was this kind of the birth of the farming system at that point?
The farm system goes back to about 1926. The first team to really start doing it was the St. Louis Cardinals in baseball.
Okay.
And so other leagues, it just became popularized with other sports. Yeah.
I don't want to get you started on baseball, but I was just curious about how.
The minor league. So each NHL team had one minor league team.
All right.
And
Fair
so
enough.
it was the IHL that they all had.
That was kind of the farming system, and that's where Jack
Yeah.
Adams kind of looked back and said, "Hey, this is an opportunity."
To develop a core of I mean, he was developing players through because originally that's what we talked about in a way previous episode was that Adams didn't originally have any money to buy players.
Okay.
So we wanted to develop his own guys by
But back
taking.
then, it was the Olympics, not an actual franchise of a farming system. It was the Olympic players, right?
No, it was the player that they played at Olympia, so the team is called the Olympics.
Olympia. Okay.
Yeah, so they were called the Olympics.
See,
and so-
I'm a novice in
Yeah,
this.
no, I get you.
I don't know sports about nothing about this guy over here.
But he had a constant machine going where he's developing.
You're
these
saying
players.
the Olympics. I'm thinking the Olympics.
No. So
it's the guys that were playing at the Olympian
exactly.
Center.
Well, that was the name
Okay.
of the minor league team was the Detroit Olympics.
Just to help folks
Yeah.
like myself that are out there.
No,
listening.
I get it. So, trust me, we got listeners been following. We did entire episodes about the Olympics. So they're like,
I'm
hey
new.
Matt, they're
All
like,
right,
hey
I'm
Matt,
new.
go back and listen to a couple episodes.
I'm still
Matt's
new.
trying to fill in some blanks.
Yeah, we're good. So, anyways, I'll read a little quote to show you just
Fill
how
in the
dominant
blank right now.
just how dominant this all O's line was. So it says, with Herbie Lewis and Larry Ori missing, the victory last night was especially pleasing. Its manager, Jack Adams. Art Giroux, Wilfred Starr, pinch hitting turned in excellent performances to help their big brothers stop a wide-open, hard-playing gang of Americans, meaning the New York Americans. Starr turned one of the Red Wing goals past goalie Roy Waters, and Giroux assisted in 2 markers. They teamed with Wally Kilrea for what constituted an entire line of former Olympic players. After a conference with Dr. Charles Thomas, club physician, at the conclusion of last night's game, Adams said Lewis would likely see action in Thursday's game against the Rangers. So there's a potential he's coming back a little earlier than they expected. Meaning Lewis. So anyway, all those line debuts in that game 37, they help them win a game. They play this huge. They're tremendously important in that game. So anyways, Game 38 is a 4-2 victory over the New York Rangers. And Lewis, it does indeed return. He returns after only 5 days. He's got a fractured rib, and Lewis returns after only 5 days. And the quotes in this article talks about how the entire team played with Lewis back in the lineup. The Red Wings played, in their own words, they played inspired hockey.
Yeah, well, they told him 10 to 12 days. He's back in 5. He's like, I got to go, man.
He's
just tape me up.
5. Yeah.
I'm going.
Yeah, he's back in 5 days.
Take them both.
Rib, right?
I don't need them.
Yeah. So, anyways, so that Herbie comes back and they have this huge win.
Nice.
So Game 39, it becomes even more especially revealing or more important that Herbie Lewis it does come back, because in game number 39 he literally saves Ebby Goodfellow's life. Ebby Goodfellow may have died on this night,
what the hell
was March 2nd, 1936.
Did he get hit?
I'll read the story. Read the story, please.
No
Yeah.
spoiler. All right, come on.
Yeah. So
wait, before you start, Abby,
Ebby Goodfellow. He's one of the superstar. He's their defenseman.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's
left,
like
right, center,
just
or?
both. Like he played in the same line with Scotty Bowman.
Okay.
So anyways, I'll read the article, right? So the Red Wings. I'll just read it right off the thing. Once again, Leo McDonald. The article comes from March 2nd, 1936, Detroit Times. The hockey fans of Detroit today are awaiting disposition of the case of Hector Toe Blake, young Canadiens player who last night in rioting during a game at Olympia deliberately attempted to maim Ebby Goodfellow of the Red Wings. Jesus. Amidst the rioting, Red Wings last night whipped Canadiens 3-1. So the Red Wings won 3-1.
So this game was at Olympia Center.
Yeah, Olympia Stadium. Blake's fate is in the hands of Frank Calder, president of the National Hockey League, to whom a report was submitted by Bill Stewart, referee in chief, last night. So let me get actually into the details of what happened. So amid rioting in the wildest night of hockey Olympia has seen in years, Red Wings last night emerged. Okay, this is summary of the same thing. Last night emerged victorious against Lake Canadiens 3-1. A game comparatively mild at the outset, in its fading moments flamed into savage combat in which Hector Toe Blake, young Montreal player, went berserk and clubbed Ebby Goodfellow over the head with a stick.
Jesus.
Only quick action by alert Herbie Lewis saved the Red Wing player from what might have been a fractured skull, if not a fatal injury. This is a tough part to read.
Broken
it's all
ribs
chopped
and
up.
all.
Let me read.
Broken
I'm just
ribs
going to
and
power
all.
through this one sentence
Come
here.
on, Herbie.
So Blake's savage attack came after Goodfellow and among players had fought with fists in the wake of a battle which the Mad Montreal boy, meaning Toe Blake, which the Mad Montreal boy had with Sid Howe minutes before. So back turned, Goodfellow was about to enter the penalty box when Blake stole upon him from behind and, taking what appeared to be careful aim, struck at the back of Detroit man's head. Arched from the ice, it was a vicious swing, checked only by Lewis's presence of mind. As the weapon descended, Lewis raised his stick and deflected the blow.
Wow.
Blake's stick grazing Goodfellow's head. The latter was not hurt. Incensed over the attack, Red Wing players swarmed over Blake in a wild demonstration in which the Montreal recruit was punched and kicked as referee Bill Stewart and Babe Dye and players tried vainly to stop the rioting as teammates rushed to Blake's defense. So as players battled on the ice, Olympia attachés and police lined the sideboards and drove back frenzied spectators who sought to leap the railings and mix in the fighting.
Which, by the way, there was no plexiglass between
That's
them.
it, man. That's it. Just like getting out. It's like jumping out of the box,
Yeah.
man.
Come on.
One
It's
spectator
like a
had
line change.
One spectator had taken part in the first of the fighting between Blake and Howe. He had been giving it to me all night, Howe said, and I got tired of it when he got fresh. A similar story was told by Goodfellow, who charged that Blake cross-checked him on several rushes. The first time he knocked my helmet off, cross-checking, Goodfellow explained. Then he came down again, cross-checking again. I figured that it was too much. With lips swollen and tongue cut and a mark in the corner of his mouth, Blake, in the Canadiens' dressing room after the game, whispered, "I don't know what happened. I didn't do anything to Howe. I didn't do anything to Goodfellow. I don't know why they should pick on me. But Jack Adams kicked him." So it says, where does it say here? It says, it was lucky that Ebby and I caught that. It was lucky for Ebby that, this is going back to Herbie.
Yeah.
So it was lucky for Ebby that I caught that stick, Lewis explained. Boy, that blow would have laid out Ebby. Blake meant business. The only other such thing I can remember, he talks about this other incident. Besides Goodfellow, Lewis and Hecuria joined in the counterattack on Blake as the fighting what does it say? Fighting with sticks and gloves were strewn all over the ice.
So Herbie coming back early from an injury to his ribs saved Abby's life.
Yeah, because he was swinging. He was about to club him with his stick, and
And
Herbie
he blocked
Berry
it.
glanced it. Yeah,
Oh
with the
my
stick.
goodness gracious.
So there's another little mini sub thing where it says young Jim. So it says it talks about how the Jim Norris Jr., the owner's son, came out of the owner's box and he got in the ice and got in a couple punches on him
well,
too.
good for him.
Yeah.
So the like
So this, I mean, we
is
have
that
a
Norris
picture.
like the Norris Trophy? Norris.
Yeah, this son, Jim
yeah.
Norris Jr. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
here it
So,
says.
so these are the dudes, man.
Yeah.
This is like the Norris Trophy.
This is like
and
this is like
This is
origin.
it, man.
This is origin story, right?
yes.
Yeah,
This
so,
and you talk the original 6. This is
origin.
what laid the
though.
groundwork.
Yeah,
for the original 6.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so
Thank you
this
for
is.
that.
So this is, we have a picture of this. There's this kind of a grainy picture of the fight from that night
Yeah.
that we put up on the screen.
It's there.
Yeah, it's
Sticks fly as spectators join fight.
Yeah, so that's just like
There it is.
that. See that you see that is hockey in the 1930s. This is not like we talk about the Malice in the Palace. Yeah, that's the photo that's up on the screen.
Malice in the Palace. That's what it
so
was.
we talk
yeah,
about-
that ain't nothing.
Yeah,
man.
that's what I mean. Like that's that's Tuesday night at Olympia back then.
Yeah, and it was like and it was the Tigers. There was like the stories, the bottles come throwing. They had they had to stop and clean up all the bottles and broken glass from the field so game could continue.
Now
for
we
the
have to clean up
Tigers.
octopus. Well, what do you want?
Yeah.
Oh, there's one more little quote I want to read. I forgot to read it, but this is a great little quote. This is Adams fighting a fan too. I know.
Oh
we
my
like
God.
to
Oh,
read
Jack
articles.
Adams fighting a fan,
Yeah.
the coach.
Yeah, the coach. This is their guy. Yeah, the guy that was punching freaking Tel
I
Blake
just-
on the ice.
just-
See,
earlier.
this is why I love hockey.
Yeah.
Old time hockey.
So this is
why I
pretty.
love
This is a
hockey.
fairly quick quote. So
Hey, we got the introductions
this-
out of the way.
So
There
this
you go.
so this fight came when this fight with Jack Adams. This came on the night that Larry Ori was injured. So this was like so he was already kind of mad.
Larry
so.
Ori, who Herbie just saved.
No, that was going to be Goodfellas.
I'm sorry.
So Herbie Lewis gets injured, and then the next night Larry Ori gets injured.
Oh, Jesus.
So on the night that Larry Ori got injured,
Jack Adams
got into
had
a
enough.
Fight with
Jack
the-
Adams
yeah,
had
he was
had
getting
enough.
heckled, and he went and fought this heckler in the bleachers. So here's this
Go on.
quick little quote. So it says, Adams today explaining the near free-for-all fight between Detroit players and Boston fans last night, said that the trouble was started by a fan abusing Marty Berry, former Boston player. The fan came to the Detroit bench and I can't read the word. The fan basically was. Oh, right here. The fan came to the Detroit bench and called Barry all kinds of vicious names. Adams related. I told the fellow to go away, said Adams, and mind his business. And when he didn't, I got up from the bench and as I did, he started at me. I had to defend myself. Adams did a very good job of defending himself, said Johnny Sorrell, who was sitting next to Barry. He got in a couple of good smacks, and as the fellow started to run, he fell down with about 7 Red Wings around, ready for action in case they were needed. So the Red Wings were like basically like a security guard around
Hey,
Adams.
touch our coach, we're gonna kill you.
So Adams is one-on-one. Got
So
a
you
couple
mess with
of
a
licks.
goalie, that's one thing.
Yeah.
You mess with a
the
coach.
That's
Well,
a
you
whole
see, like
other
this
level.
is this
yeah.
rollicking atmosphere
Right,
of
right.
hockey in these days.
Oh, my
And
God.
so anybody that says like this is one of the things it's almost like a stereotype I've had to combat constantly, and especially when I'm at these art shows and I only have 45 seconds to tell a story.
Yeah.
These people they'll hear the story and they'll walk away and they'll be like, yeah, but that was back in the 30s. Like they discount it because it was like they think it was a slower
freaking
game.
happened.
No,
They
it
think-
like
well,
it
people-
didn't,
they
it was a slower
happen.
game. They weren't really
There was hardly any
professionals.
teams. They were smaller. They didn't, they did like they
It
weren't that big
wasn't.
of a
It
deal.
wasn't real professional
Yeah, it
sports.
wasn't like
yet.
it is now. But that's what's
And
crazy
you know what?
is
I think today's sports is watered down
they've sanitized it.
with the protective. And
Yes.
I mean, you need the rules. I mean, you had to find a happy medium between.
There's a reason
that-
why you live longer now than they did back in the 30s.
That
you
and
have to
this.
think about that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, but what I'm
yeah.
saying about these sports back then is that this is the age that they were coming out
Oh,
of
yeah.
nowhere. Like right now, they're institutions. Like these are billion-dollar institutions.
You're
People
not
are
going to
bred
lay out
for-
a millionaire like
people,
that.
Yeah, people when they're from their earliest
Usually.
childhood, you're basically indoctrinated into your favorite team. So you're brought up as a fan. So basically, they have a ready-made fan base.
Mm-hmm.
They have new fans coming up the pipeline with every new birth as a baby's decorated in a onesie with a Red Wings logo on it.
Right.
But back then, they had to create the fans. The fans, they had to turn somebody that maybe never cared about this sport, and they had to convert them into a fan.
We're
This
trading
was
potatoes for freak's sake.
There's that too. That's to get them get their foot in the door. But what I'm saying is that this was the
Trade
show.
potatoes.
But this was the show that they're putting on.
Yeah.
Was this rollicking, freewheeling, crazy environment that these people go to.
But the mentality.
Yeah.
Back then, it was not a show. It was a sport. And it still is a sport today, but it was a sport that they cared about
yeah.
and that they were passionate about.
Well, I'm not going to discount modern players. I never like to
No.
do that. I don't like to
No.
discount because
It's a
they go through a
sport.
lot of stuff nowadays. I don't like to
it's
discount
not
players
what
today.
it is today. And-
Yeah,
and-
it's different. I'm gonna, but I'm saying is that it's.
And
I
we're
think it's
smarter.
more,
There's more
I think
science.
it's more
Yeah.
sanitized
It's better.
now. I think they've sanitized a lot of these games now. But back then, like this is the era that these sports were evolving, and they were capturing the interest of these people with these like crazy environments, right? I
Right.
mean, that's what I mean. Like you could go to this Red Wings game and see like. You're there and you see some crazy stuff happening. man.
Again-
I'm not poo-pooing anything that they
Yeah.
did back then. I am
Yeah.
I'm enthralled.
Again,
I
it-
can't even find the
yeah.
word. But the fact is that these guys really cared about what they were doing.
Well, of course they did.
And what they were going for.
Of course they
It was
did.
Laura
But
Stanley.
I just mean that I don't like to discount modern day players.
Sure.
'Cause There's,
Oh, yeah,
there's
yeah,
this
yeah,
thing
yeah,
going
yeah.
around that people say
No.
back then they liked the games and nowadays they're just playing for the money.
No,
and I disagree with that
no.
sentiment because
No,
a lot of
the
people
passion is still
But-
yeah,
there.
but-
they play for
I'm-
the game too. They love the game.
Absolutely.
The world's at a turn right now with all that. But there was a
There-
fervor.
there's a
The
pivot
fervor
somewhere.
But
Yeah,
there
the
was,
fervor.
but there's
the
this.
fervor here is what carried
Yeah.
the Wings and the NHL through World War II
Yes.
to modern hockey.
And even in the 50s and
that
60s,
people
there was
glorify.
this raucous environment too.
Yes.
With the with the Gordie Howe era, there was this
Yeah.
sort of raucous environment too.
But-
and there's to a certain extent,
Gordie
you see
Howe would
elements
not
of it.
exist without this history.
Absolutely, this was the precursor. These are the teams that Gordie Howe would have grown up watching.
Right.
These are the teams that he would have like Sid Howe. I have this photo of Sid Howe when Sid Howe met Gordie Howe. Gordie, I've never
Beeman.
asked him this, but he was like Sid Howe when Gordie first came to the Red Wings. Sid Howe was retiring, and Sid Howe was the all-time goal scorer in the NHL history at that
Right.
moment. So he's probably like looking at Sid Howe, not related to him, of course, but looking at him just going, "Oh my God,
I wanna
I'm talking
frickin'
to
be
Sid
you."
Howe."
Right, right.
This guy's a legend of legends. And then Gordie is he's a young man at this point. So that's what I mean. Like this was the era that inspired these 1950s players. And of course, Adams, when he was playing in the early 1900s, his era was who was inspiring the 30s guys.
when the Sharks cat Patrick Marleau just broke Gordie Howe's record for games played.
Oh, okay.
Right, and he was so humble about it, and he was
Yeah.
like, I almost didn't want to do it.
No, he's like,
he
"It's
felt,
Gordie Howe,
he felt
no."
bad. He felt bad about it.
Yeah.
He felt good about it, but he felt bad about
Well,
it.
because you've revered that player for so
Yeah.
long, you can't even imagine.
And he's
doing
like,
something that they've
crap!
done,
I
yeah.
played too long. I broke his record.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, but like I say,
How to
this-
shoot.
But this
How
is,
do you
but,
do that?
But can
Yeah.
you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, there's never like there's. There's plenty of there's not there's a lot of baseball movies. There's a couple of like leather helmet football movies. Both of them they're comedies, and then for
Rudy!
Rudy, yeah, but
we got to talk. Go ahead.
But anyways, but for
Gotta talk about
hockey,
Leatherheads coming
but
back.
for hockey, there's never been a movie that's pre 1970s. Like the earliest
Right.
hockey movie was Slapshot,
Right.
But before
Right.
If you
before
check
the
me into the
70s,
boards.
could you imagine this? This is a
gonna wet
movie.
himself.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine that this is like a Netflix? Like this is like a movie. Can you imagine
if there was
as a
only
movie?
someone who would write the screenplay?
Yeah, well, that's why.
Oh,
I
wait
wrote
a
it.
second, we
Yeah.
wrote it.
Wait
Yeah.
a minute. It's already
Not we wrote it, but
exists.
Charles wrote
Yeah,
it.
but can you imagine this story that we're
Oh my
telling
God.
as a component of a larger narrative with Joe Louis, Tigers, Lions, all these stories we're talking about?
Listen.
This is the greatest sports epic film ever
Oh, yeah.
created.
For one, I'm a sports fan. I like all sports.
Yeah.
Hockey, football, baseball. I enjoy sports. I'll watch sailing for God's sakes, okay? I'll watch golf
Sure.
and enjoy myself. But the story behind
Yeah.
these players
Oh, they're great.
is what your screenplay is about.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
All right? So
The drama, the
And
connections, all these different
it
things.
personifies it a whole lot
You know,
more.
like just the storyline with the goalie. This is a major component of the screenplay. Is that you have the goalie of the Blackhawks, like every single the rivalry between the owners hate each other, The GMs hate each other. The coaches hate, the coach.
And by the way,
GM.
they were neighbors.
Yeah, they're neighbors in Chicago. Yeah, they're neighbors in Chicago. And then you've got, the players have this history of hating each other. The Red Wings actually had made it to the Stanley Cup 2 years prior to this,
right.
And they got beat by the Blackhawks in the finals for the final game.
All right, so 1935 Red Wings.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
What game are we on right now? 36,
We're leaving
37?
off on game because that was the last game. The last game we're talking about tonight. So this is.
So
we're
was
leaving
that
off
the last
on,
game?
Yes, that's the last game we're leaving off tonight. So game 39.
Game 39. Okay,
There's
so
11 more games to go. We're going to wrap them all up in the next week, I think.
for our for the next City of Champions, we're going to talk about what?
Next episode is the final 9 games for this season.
Jesus.
48 games. But it's the next season. We're
9.
going to be able to warp speed through a few of them, but there's 2 really significant games that I want to talk about, bookends of each
And,
other.
this
they
is
were-
like
and
this
they
is
were
a
playing
real.
who?
There's a dip here. There's a
We'll
roller
get to it.
coaster. We get in some trouble here in the next set of games, right?
Yeah.
We
Big
start-
time. You can see on the
Yep,
little schedule.
I got it up
they're
there.
showing the wins and losses.
whoop.
Yeah, they get into
That
some
roller
trouble.
coaster
This is
goes
a big
down.
deal.
So, all right, I got to go back to we talked about football and the Leatherheads and the
Mm-hmm.
movies about the Leatherheads for a second. All right, so shout out to Dan Brown, Goober from Goober and the Peas. He was in the one with Clooney.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan-
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember that exact.
Yeah,
person,
Dan
that
Brown,
character.
Goober, yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
got
was-
you.
I fucking love Dan Brown. All right,
Okay.
sorry. Do you know Goober and the Peas?
No, I don't.
Oh, all right, Detroit band from the
Okay.
89.
What he's in that movie, or is it just, or does he look like the guy or something?
Oh my God, no, he's in the movie.
Oh,
He's
is
in
he
the
really?
movie. Oh yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Okay, no, I
so
didn't
he
know
was
that.
in Walk the Line with Joaquin
Really?
Phoenix.
I'm gonna have to take a look. I didn't know.
So
that.
so we go to a press screening of Walk the Line with
Yes.
Joaquin. It's
Phoenix.
the
was,
the Johnny Cash movie,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was
And-
with Reese Witherspoon? was
Yep.
that?
And so I'm sitting there, and I'm there with my friend Karen Quigley, and we're watching the movie, and I'm like, Karen, the dude play guitar. I go, that looks just like freaking Goober. And she's like, what? I'm like, freaking that's Dan. She's like, shut up. I'm like, no, that's God damn it, I know Dan.
Jeez.
You know, and it's like Dan Brown he's from here from Metro Detroit. And so the thing is, Jack White, right? Jack White was in Goober and the Peas.
Okay. All
He
right.
was
Okay.
before he was in the White Stripes.
Yeah.
Jack White was the drummer in Goober and one of the drummers. The Goober and the Peas is like Spinal Tap with their freaking drummers. They go
Yeah.
through drummers, but so Jack White was a drummer in Goober and the Peas for a while. And I know I just like the local Detroit.
No, that is the local. I
scene.
didn't know any of that. I had no idea.
So, but I'm like, and the credits come up, and it's like Dan Brown and his wife played his
Karen,
wife in
yeah.
the movie.
Oh my God,
as
really?
well. Yeah, she
Really?
played the wife. So he was one of the guys in Johnny Cash's band.
Interesting,
It was,
I don't know
the thing was because Jack White, was it Loretta Lynn? Was it who Jack White produced? Was it Loretta Lynn?
It sounds right.
If it wasn't Loretta Lynn, it was
I'll Google it.
Justified and Ancient. Who's
I'll try to Google it here.
all right, so Jack White was producing like one of the Grand Ole Opry stars, like most current record, right?
Yeah.
And then so he's in Nashville and he's working with all these people, and they're starting to shoot this Johnny Cash Walk the Line movie with
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix, and
yeah.
they're like we need like a consultant. We need somebody who can like who knows this kind of music and knows this vibe, and Jack's like, I know a dude,
Yeah.
I know a dude in Detroit that guy has got this down.
Well, how did he get? Oh,
and they
okay.
because Jack White was Jack White. at
Jack
that-
White's Jack White.
But I'm just saying, I didn't know he was connected with like Joaquin Phoenix and all that.
Well, he was in Nashville.
Oh, I guess,
And
okay.
and producing in Nashville, and it came across his radar. He's like, I got a dude from Detroit that has got this down.
Yeah.
And they brought Dan in to be a consultant, and they're like, screw that, you're in the
You're in
movie.
the movie.
You're in
That's
the movie,
cool.
dude.
Yeah.
And they brought his wife in to be his wife. Yeah. So
That's cool.
Shorty, he played Shorty, I think.
I'm gonna have to have another
but,
look. I didn't.
Yeah,
know
but
this.
we're
That's
sitting there watching
interesting.
the movie. It was a press screening. I'm like, and I didn't know. I'm like, that's Goober. And my friend is like, it's not.
So
How-
what?
how-
Karen Quigley's like, yeah, no,
So
but
what-
it was.
How
So-
could that?
so
How
he-
could that be Goober? I'm like, that's freaking Goober.
So he
But
ended up getting a role in Leatherheads,
and then he
too?
was in Leatherheads too. He
Yeah.
was like a
Jeez.
bellman in
Yeah,
Leatherheads,
that's
and
interesting.
he's been in a crap ton of movies. He does a
Yeah.
ton of movies.
Was
and
that
crap
his
now.
break into Hollywood? Was getting that role?
I think Walk the Line was his first big. Well, I mean that was
Because once you're in one, if you hit it off kind of big,
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
a
yeah.
role
That was
player or
that was
something,
his,
you're gonna
yeah,
get
that was
all
his
the
big.
roles. Yeah.
And he's so good. I
Yeah.
mean, he can be. He's got a persona that he can. turn on and off, and he can be other things. Hell, he's Goober.
Well, maybe we can bring
It's
him in
just-
for
it's
something like this
Dan,
for City of Champions
and he's
movie or
Goober.
something, man.
You know,
Yeah.
that was like Leatherheads. That was a real digression.
Yeah.
And it's just me name dropping like a mofo.
Yeah. No, but I didn't know that. It's interesting. It's an interesting component.
But it's a really cool Detroit thing
Yeah.
that how Jack White. And actually, we're down here, downtown Detroit, at the Detroit Shipping Company. We're just a couple blocks away from Third Man Records.
Yes,
Well,
we
it'd be
are.
cool. It'd be cool if we could mobilize some of these Detroiters that are doing movies, doing music. Like if we could somehow connect with some of these people that are doing, these things.
You know,
they're
they and I
entertainment.
know.
Man, what a better what? Don't tell me this would not be. I'm like, I know this
No.
is my screenplay. I'm trying to
No.
push it or whatever. But at the same time, like,
No.
how can anybody that not see this and be like, this is not the greatest movie
Dan
concept
would love
like
this
ever,
story.
man.
Jack would love this
Yeah.
story. Because they're Detroit dudes.
I
and
know.
They love this. They eat this. They eat the Detroit
Yeah,
stuff up.
that's insane. But like to mobilize some of these assets that are in Detroit, could you imagine if like the Red Wings, Tigers, Lions, Red Wings are like announcing the fact that, or the announcement that there's a first sports epic movie ever made coming out. There's been plenty of sports movies.
You gotta put Dan
but
in it
there's
'cause he's-
never been an epic.
He's got that look about it. He's
No.
got that classic chiseled.
Well, hear
look
me out.
about
Like,
him.
you hear me out. Like, there's, like, you got these epic movies like Ben Hur,
Yeah, yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia. These like bigger than big, like massive type movies, like your Game of Thrones or your these epic like tent pole type, shows for these industries. Like, there's nothing that stops us to resurrect a story of this magnitude and to make it a epic, the first sports epic. What better story? What better subject to create the first sports epic ever
Detroit
made?
and City of
Detroit,
Champions.
the city of champions.
Yeah,
man. That's
we
what I'm
need
saying.
it. All right, Matt. What did we find out?
I couldn't find shit.
Fair play. All
I
right,
didn't have enough time.
I thought you had it. All right.
I didn't have
So
anything.
that
I'm
I
sorry.
think that wraps it, man. Please
good.
like, follow, subscribe. Thank you for being with us, and we're gonna do more next time. We're gonna wrap up these last 9 games.
The regular season, we wrap it up in the next game. It's gonna be. It's
because we haven't hit we didn't do the final games. We held off.
There's one more game against the Blackhawks.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll just
I
get
mean,
a little
for
teaser
the
next
Tigers,
episode.
and for the Lions, we didn't talk about the final game.
No, we didn't.
of
We're going to
each.
save all the
We were
championships
saving them
for the
all.
end.
Yeah, we were
gonna
saving
do
them all.
a
We're going to do it.
back to back to back, and we're going
Yeah.
to hammer through the
We're gonna do-
championships.
and there's so many people to talk about. Sukar,
Yeah.
Garwood,
Yeah, all
Walter
of it.
Hagen.
We haven't even-
the
yeah,
Sharpshooters,
Joe Lewis.
Checker.
We
Joe
haven't even got
freaking
the
Lewis.
Joe Lewis yet.
we got nothing but time.
Matt and I were hanging out with Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, there's a shot of Matt and I and JJ, Joe Louis Barrow Jr. and Johnny, who they just opened that Joe Louis Southern Kitchen on Woodward there at
right
the
there on
Boulevard.
that new center area, right? Yeah.
So so that was super cool. So we're gonna have JoJo. We're gonna have JoJo
oh,
on
that's gonna be
when we
great.
talk
I
about his
can't- yeah,
dad.
it's gonna be great.
I'm he's gonna cry.
Yeah.
He's so,
I hope-
we made him cry.
We did, and
'Cause
I felt
we didn't-
bad about it.
We didn't put it out as a podcast, but
Not
if,
yet.
On YouTube or Facebook, if you look at the
Yeah.
videos, Matt and I got to sit down with JoJo and his
yeah.
business partner Raul. His business partner Raul.
I love his email, Cannonball.
Yeah, no, John. It's Johnny Cannon.
Yeah, Johnny-
Cannonball. Cannonball.
No, they've got an amazing restaurant right here in the new center
Yeah.
area in downtown, and it's a brunch breakfast It's a brunch breakfast restaurant.
Right.
Oh my god, the food is amazing.
Oh yeah, it's crazy,
But
crazy southern
JoJo's
kitchen.
got he's so passionate about his father and how he feels about him. So I cannot wait until you guys kind of dig into a little bit of the Joe Lewis.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Lewis. Well, Joe Lewis emerged out of this entire story. My favorite athlete was Joe Lewis.
Yeah.
My favorite story was Gar Wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know about the different players. My favorite player for the Lions, Glenn Presnell. My favorite 1935 wing was Bucko. My favorite overall Red Wing was Ebby Goodfellow.
All right.
But
So
but Joe was my
there's
favorite athlete of
so
all of
much
them. He was
more.
my favorite
Yeah.
athlete. Wait till we get to Joe. I
There's
can't.
You know what I
so
miss?
much more.
You know
So
what I
much
miss?
more.
You know what I miss? I miss Tom.
Oh, me too. I miss him too. We'll get Tom back out
We
here.
got to get
He's-
Tom. Yeah,
He's
been
got
busy
some-
taking care of
yeah,
his
he's-
lady friend.
Lady
and
friend, he's got some
broken hips
but
and legs
if
and
Tom's
knees.
listening, we go tell him we love him, we miss him, and
Hell yeah.
we'll bring him
Yes.
out. He's always welcome to any day that he's available. We'll get Tom out here.
Even if we're not recording, we'll come in and turn on microphones. Just
We'll go
Absolutely.
to his place. Come on.
yeah,
we can do that. We got the mobile stuff.
Yeah,
we'll
we
go,
could-
we'll
we
go
could do
record
that.
at Tom's
Absolutely.
place.
I'm sure he'd appreciate it because he doesn't. He hasn't been down to Detroit. Like he hasn't been out here in a long
It's
time.
challenge.
so-
This is a challenging area.
yeah, it's a little tricky. So Tom will be out here one of these days.
I need
We
one of
love
those
Tom.
I need one of those self-driving cars.
You
to-
kinda do,
Did we-
but-
was that this show or last show? we were
That was
talking about?
last show,
All
but
right.
beware the solar flares.
Okay.
Just saying.
All right, self-driving cars, solar flares. Listen to the Man Cave Happy Hour too.
Cheers.
All right, so Podcast Detroit, Detroit Shipping Company, downtown Detroit. It is Detroit City of Champions. Like, follow,
DetroitCityChampions.com, the website. We're going to be having all this up there, too.
And yes, thank you for being with us. And Charles, again, just
I love doing the show, man.
The energy you
I
bring
love
to
doing
the
the
show, I appreciate it so much.
I love doing the
and,
show.
We're going to do it again
Yeah, I love hanging out with
Your
you guys.
knowledge is
Thomas.
amazing.
within a matter of minutes.
No, I love
Keep
this
bringing
stuff,
it.
man. Yeah, I love
All
this
right.
stuff.
See you guys next time. Keep your stick on the ice.
I love it. Stick on the ice, boys.